Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's me, Colin, Project Constitution. With me today is my lovely guest host. As always, I'm always happy to have Steve with me today. Stephen Benoon, Israeli News Live. Uh, we have a great show for you today. We are going to dig into how Charlie Kirk actually died, how he was taken out. We have gone the gamut of being shot with the sniper, and then it turns out we did some more research. We don't believe that's the case. We believe that he was taken out with an explosion. Originally, we thought possibly from the mic itself, the lavalier microphone itself. However, after more research and after more pictures that have come out, we actually believe that Charlie was killed with an explosion from the receiver, the lavalier microphone receiver that was on his belt. So not actually the microphone itself that was held onto his shirt with a magnet, but the actual receiver that can be seen that we know he had on that day, that was under his shirt, under his belt, which was lined up exactly. I'll go ahead and pull the picture up real quick. But this right here, you could see, if you look at this picture, you could see that little indentation right there, right under that arrow. That is the receiver for the microphone, which was on his belt. And if you look, it lines up pretty much perfectly with his neck, where the wound is in his neck. So that is what we believe happened. And I will actually show you one more thing real quick as well, just to give you an idea what we're talking about. Right here, this is a Rode TX belt wireless belt pack transmitter designed for use with the Rode Link digital wireless system, which is what Charlie was wearing. We know he had the Rode wireless microphone on right there. So this is what we believe actually blew up. And of course, we'll get into the black shards that were found not only at the scene, but also in the SUV that Charlie was taken to the hospital in. So we're going to show you some clips of like John Bray. And we believe he's right on a lot of things, except that he is still saying that it's from the actual microphone itself, where we believe it's the actual wireless transmitter. So we're going to get into all that. And I basically am going to let Steve take it from here. And if you guys want, yeah, so go ahead.
I appreciate it so much, Colin. And you know, just you have done such amazing work on trying to get this information out to the people, exposing what really happened to Charlie Kirk. You and the team that you've been working with, such amazing group that you have there, and so dedicated in finding the information. So I think that people really should subscribe to you guys if they haven't already, and follow the work that you do, because it's really very, very, let's put it like this. There's no agenda when it comes to Colin and Project Constitution. It's only to get to the truth of the matter, and he's plowing right through it. So this whole theory here that we're looking at now with this transmitter that was on his belt line really became very interesting to me, especially when we were first looking at the mic issue, and the gentleman that you had brought on, we did the interview together. He's an amazing young man, and he really helped kind of steer us into that direction to look at this as a possibility. And then
Ali, he's a great, good guy. I just did a stream with him on Epstein actually yesterday. He's been digging into the Epstein case.
Exactly. And then too, I want to also just remember, you know, Ty and we're not going to Mars. His amazing contribution to with us in the beginning there, when we were exploring the theory there that possibly there was a side entrance wound, everything from the neck, the side of the head, we had the ear, we had so many different ideas that we were looking at. Found one place that looked like it could have been an entrance wound because, I mean, unfortunately, working with CIA and stuff, I've seen too many people get killed in my life. And it's not a very pleasant thing by no means. It causes you a lot of problems later in life, but or especially at the time. And always your entrance wounds are generally very small, and it's the exit wounds that are so large. And this is the reason why we had such a hard time wrapping our heads around, this can't be an entrance wound with such a big gaping wound there. But, I'm not taking into consideration, what about shrapnel? Also, I lived in Israel. I went through a suicide bombing, so I know what shrapnel does. Shrapnel is much larger pieces, does a lot of damage to the body, and even, unfortunately, all the horrible images that we see coming out of Gaza with these poor people and what they're suffering. I saw this one little girl, and they, you just happens to be on Twitter, and you're catching it because some of this stuff is live. And I actually know some of the people that live there in Gaza. And the little girl, it was just a fragment that hit the front of her head. She's still alive, but she had a huge hole in the front of her head. So that's what shrapnel does. And then, of course, I remember one time I was talking to Phil Turney. You had interviewed Phil not too long ago, and Phil being the survivor of the USS Liberty. And I called him up one day, and we were talking a little bit. And I said, Phil, I'm just trying to figure this out. I think maybe a drone may have done it. And this is something that even Ty had got into with us as well. And Phil said, no, Steve.
And by the way, I think Ty is onto something there. I do think he is correct that there was a drone. There was a sniper drone used. I do believe that, although that is not what killed Charlie. He was not, I don't think it actually hit him. I think it was just, just cover, just kind of more of a decoy to have that, because they wanted to make it look like a gunshot. So in order to do that, you have to have a gun firing. And I think that's what that was. I think they used a sniper drone to do that.
Right. And it's like JFK. What people don't know, sadly enough, the very guy that I worked with at the time in the CIA that was the assassin, later, after we staged his death and made everything go away with all the different investigations, I would rock your world on some of the things that were world news at that time that I knew intimately about what really happened and the government's involvement in that. Won't go into that at this point, but needless to say, we were later, one of my old partners, he said, your own partner was involved in Kennedy's assassination. And I'm like, what? It's like, I never heard that one. And, but we've talked a lot about it. And Oliver Stone, a friend of mine actually knew Oliver's son and was trying to get me connected with him at one point because he was looking at all these multiple shooters. And that's really where I'm thinking about in this case here with Charlie. When they're going to try to make sure that he doesn't walk away, that is not uncommon, whether it's to do a decoy, just like in the case of the boy they arrested, Tyler. He's a decoy. He's not the actual shooter. He's the patsy. He's the same thing in the Kennedy assassination. And of course, they had to kill him so that he doesn't, it doesn't come out, that no leaks are found in there. I actually knew one of the guys on the Warren Commission as well, worked with him for a number of years. And so to getting to this, back to this thing about Charlie, though, Phil Turney, when I was talking to him with the USS Liberty attack, he said, Steve, it has to be the microphone. And that was the first time I had actually heard that. And I'm like, I didn't discount it because Phil said it. And but then he made the other statement that really got my mind to thinking, Colin. He said, Steve, he said, the Israelis, remember what they did with the pagers? He said they killed all these people. And then later the Israeli government admitted not only that, but they also admitted they had designed the radios to kill Hamas militants, but they decided not to use it. Well, they decided not to use it because they wanted to genocide the people instead, I guess. But the point being here is that what we're looking at now is that when we're looking at the pager and then we look at this microphone pack, this transmitter that you had just shared a moment ago, and you look at a pager, those that remember the days of pagers, well, they're still used. They're about the same size. They're not much different in size. In fact, the transmitter may be, you can see the one that Charlie's wearing is a little bit larger than what a pager would be. And the other thing that was really driving my mind at the time, Colin, was, and you and I talked about this, we got on together, we got on one of our meetings here just so I could show you. And I said, I want you to look at something that's really been bothering the mess out of me. I said, I'm watching, we see this blast effect. We see his hair on his right side go flying back. You see from the other angle on the other side, you see the shirt puff way back. You see the hair go back on the other side. You can see the shirt flattens out on his chest like it just crawls up his whole body there. And a lot of these movements, Colin, are even before he snaps forward from the impact of what just went inside of his body. And, you know, and of course, doctors have talked about the clenched fist and how that's a spinal stem trauma that would cause that. And I'm sitting there, and as I'm considering that possibility, there was a video that you had sent me one day, you know, and as I'm looking at this video, it's from that side view where we have that really high resolution. And then I realized, okay, well, it's definitely not a gunshot to the wound, to the ear, or anything like that, because we have a very clear image now. We know that side of the head's not got an impact that we can see, at least. Now, as I'm looking at that, then I capture in my view there his spinal cord on the back of his neck right here. As you look at it, it slightly bulges out. Now, I've had a hobby of reading MRIs and CAT scans and multiple other imaging, because I was actually trained in imaging when I worked with the government, not that particular type, but it just helped me to be able to read those things later. And I've got a very good track record of being accurate on what I read.
Yeah, you did a hell of a job when, you know, dissecting and examining Frank's phone to be able to find the guy behind him with the van like that. Like, you were able to tell all that just from the phone. So you definitely know what you're talking about with that, for sure.
Yeah, it's just, you start noticing these little things that not many people see. And then recently you had posted 2 images, and one was showing the vertebrae going through a person's neck there with his picture there, and had an arrow on there, you know. And as I was looking at that image there, it was where you could just click from one image to the other. And I got my wife, I said, I want you to watch something. And I clicked on that image to where it switched from right before impact and immediately when the impact happens. His head still hasn't gone down, but you see that arch, kind of like the neck is straight, and then you see that arch go in there. Now it's more, you're really looking at this part here, and it just kind of does like that. It gives that little bit of arch in the neck there. Well, then I remembered Candace Owens making the statement, okay, guys, you're right. It's not a 30-06. You're right. But that is the entrance wound. And yes, it did stop at his neck. I have new intel on this. And so that had kind of stuck in my mind. It kind of bothered me, because I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, gosh, that doesn't seem accurate, especially if we got an exit wound here, right? And so I'm going back. It bothered
me too, because it defies everything we know about physics and how they work. You know, like the entrance wound is always smaller than the exit wound. You know, and things just didn't add up.
Exactly. So then you had the young guy that comes in here and talks about the exploding mic, and Pettin, and he's also talking about the pagers. And of course, the mic is on the opposite side. And no matter what we did with the video, we never could get that mic to where it would go over here, and it never seems to fragment at any given time that I could see anyway. But
yeah, that's actually my biggest problem like I think John Bray is right on just about everything, except that's my biggest flaw, my biggest problem with that is how do you get the microphone exploding to go from one, from his right side of his shirt all the way up and then do like a 180-degree turn and then go back down into his neck. I mean, that just physics doesn't work like that.
It doesn't. And I'm going to see if I can find something here real quick, because it's funny you're talking about MRIs. I just went past an MRI I was looking at recently there. My own doctor actually asked me to read his not too long ago because he was very concerned. And I said, look, I'm not a doctor. What are you asking me that for? He said, you read them better than most radiologists do. I said, no, I just take more time is all. Let's see here.
But the mic pack, like our theory, what we're talking about with the, on his belt, the receiver, I call it a mic pack, but it's really the receiver or whatever. But that is actually, if you look, it's lined up perfectly with the wound, where his neck is. It's almost perfectly in line with it. So that makes a lot more sense. If there was an explosion in the mic pack or whatever, that it would be a lot easier to send something shooting up direct in the line there than have it do some crazy 180-degree turn thing. And, it just makes a lot more sense.
Exactly. Now, I did find a photo here. Let me take and share this real quick.
And it's made of the exact same material as, the microphone on his lapel as well. So, you would find the same black shards and everything that we see.
Exactly. And let's see here. I'm looking for a particular thing there. Let's see if I can find. Here we go. Got it now. All right. Colin, if you can pull this up here, it actually shows a couple of things that I think is very important. And now kind of ignore the, did we get it right on there, Colin? Do I have it up yet or no?
Yep, it's up. I don't know if you could zoom it in or not, though.
Yes, I can. Ignore. Cool. I don't. This one, I forget where I got it from, but you can ignore the blue circle. I didn't put the blue circle in there or anything, but let me kind of move some things around here so we can see this. Okay. Now, the thing is, you notice you can see the puff of air in the back of his shirt right here. If you had a before image, you can see the swelling here in the back of his neck here. You can already see that swelling, but let me do like this here. I'd get a little closer here. But what it is when you take the frame right before this, the neck is straight. It's not arched like it is. It's not swollen like it is. But then you come down here where that blue line's kind of blocking it there. That's that entry wound there. And what I did, and I'll just put an arrow here so we can kind of better define this here, regardless of where that initial impact is there and in the entry wound there, that's when I realized, and I'll say the entry wound's right about that area there, okay, that's when I realized that, yes, it's definitely down below him. And so something traveled upwards and went in, and as it entered into the front of his neck, it hit, and as that one video that you had there, the scientific proof of the exploding mic, that guy talks about as it hit the spine, they called it a ricochet, but almost as if he's saying it traveled up, doing the damage even to the brain stem. That seems to actually even be more accurate with this here, because the other thing that we have to look at, and I'll do a line just for the sake of try to make it a little bit more straight there. This is still not straight enough. Now, if you'll notice there, let me make it bigger now that we did that there. You see how if you do the line straight, you can see that part of his neck bulging out just beyond that there. To me, what we're looking at is that when it went into the front, then it arched his neck out from that initial impact. But he doesn't, and that's another issue too, when we talk about this massive loss of blood, and there's a delay in that loss of blood at first. When that fragment that hit him, whether it's a piece of that that pack that's on him, or whether there was some kind of a shrapnel. Most of the time when they do these exploding, like Israel, when they did the exploding pagers, they put the Witn in there, but they put some materials in there that would fragment, that would go, you know, and go towards the person that's wearing the microphone to actually kill them. And in this case here, I'm not really sure what they did, but I know that you've got a picture there, and I'll stop sharing this thing here. But you've also got a picture as well inside the van, Colin, where I think Candace Owens shows these plastic fragments on the floor there, which would make sense.
Yeah, I can pull that up if you want.
Right. And another thing that was interesting too, Colin, is something that you had mentioned. You know, it's like that when this thing went off, it's the shirt itself kept everything inside.
Actually, go ahead.
No. So the only thing that I could say there is that does seem more realistic, and the fact that the fragments would fall out on the carpet, because as you're going in, his shirt is loose. It's not tucked in the first place. And I can just imagine how the shards and stuff of what's left of that transmitter are now just dropping out of his clothes.
Absolutely. Actually, we could go ahead and play a couple minutes of this clip from Trigger Smart with John Bray, where they actually talk about the shards found in the car and at the scene and everything. They do a good job of showing it and explaining it. So we could just play a few minutes of that. I think that would be better.
So this is one of the pagers from Lebanon.
Yeah.
And
let me put it on regular speed. Sorry. I know you guys probably don't want to hear it sound like Chipmunk.
That in particular is the walkie-talkie.
Walkie-talkie. Okay. So now I'm just bringing this up because with the Candace Owens kind of dropped that bomb in one of her videos saying that there's the little specks, the little black specks on the floor inside of her car. Have you seen that yet?
Yeah.
So the car that Charlie was in, and they're saying that that might be from, you know, people are implying that might be from the explosion, like pieces of the pager, or of the, in this case, of the audio that exploded, and these little tiny pieces they're seeing in the car were from that. What do you think about that?
I believe.
Yeah, I'm actually the one that sent her the message about that. The type of plastic that you see in the floorboard too would match the plastic you could expect from that device. So you have flat black plastic, and then you have glossy plastic. The glossy plastic is the actual face of the case, which the battery is right behind that O there. So that immediate charge would basically shatter that into, you know, a million little pieces like glass. And then the primary charge would further break the inner core of the device, which you showed earlier when the battery was kind of popped out of the device. It's all flat black on the inside of it. And how thin that plastic is, when it would break, it would just shatter into small little pieces like that from the high pressure wave of the explosive. Like I said, it's a Mach 7, you know, jet that's going to be coming out of that device. It's just going to completely wreck anything. And it's not a hot explosion. It can reach, you know, 500 degrees, but it does so in such a quick time that it doesn't really get time to transfer away. That's why it doesn't like burn things or leave burns even on the victim. It would leave a wound that looked a lot like a rifle impact.
So
exactly.
And you know, the other thing too, Colin, I'm sure, no doubt, there may have been bigger pieces that were falling out as well, but they just kind of scoop that up as they go, and they're not thinking that anybody's going to pay attention to these smaller fragments later. So that's an interesting observation that they're making. I'm glad they're bringing up this part about Israel, because they're the ones that have the ability. They have the technology. And quite frankly, whether it be Mossad or CIA, there's not very many other agencies in the world that could do that. Yes, Russians could do it as well. The Chinese could even do it for that matter. But And by the way, the ones that were used in Lebanon were assembled in Iran, believe it or not. But that was at Israel's doings. They were assembled in Iran. But they did it that way so that the Lebanese Hezbollah would believe that it came from Iran. It's got to be safe. They're not worried about it. That's just how well connected Israel is in all these other different nations around the world. Doesn't make any difference. They've got extensive sources and people that are working with them to build, manufacture things and to build whatever they happen to have need of. So, and another thing I'll mention too, Colin, that when we were looking at this mic, and then I saw this bulge in his spinal cord there, obviously realizing this was an entrance, the front was an entrance wound. But then as I looked at that, I started looking at trajectory. And I'm like, gosh, I called you up and I said, Colin, I said, I remember that somebody showing a bullet between his legs. I thought, well, maybe that has something to do with it. And it wasn't until you found this pack on his waist that now the pieces really began to come together. It started to make more sense at what I was looking at. And I've actually experienced.
Same here. As you remember, when we had Ali on the first time, I was skeptical of the microphone thing because of that. Like I said, the one thing that we could not square was how it goes up and does the 180-degree angle to go into his neck. But the mic, like when we found that he was wearing a transceiver, receiver, or whatever, on his belt for the mic, that was the game changer for me as well. Yeah,
exactly. And we have that, and then there's a couple of other things that I thought were interesting as well. My wife brought up one conjecture that she had as well on this. She said, Charlie had clearly violated the Noahide laws in Israel's mind when he started going against Israel and things like that. And of course, when you violate those 7 commandments that they have, which is actually over 100, it's decapitation according to their Talmudic teaching on this. She said, I believe that when they use this exploding, receiver, whatever they use to do it with, it was like decapitation, so to speak. And they did it publicly because they wanted the world to know this is what happens to you when you get out of line. And I think that's something that's so important for people to recognize as well when you're, there's got to be a reason behind it. I recently sent you a message and I asked you how many videos were out there where Charlie is, going against Israel, and you said 4, and I actually found a 5th one as well after you said that, because we were doing a little broadcast about this. And because some people were trying to say, oh no, that Charlie only that one time ever said it, and people are just taking that out of context. No, he really. So in fact, there was a lady that my wife mentioned, I forget her name, but she said that Charlie had received a book from her that she had written, and she was basically taking Matthew 24 and showing that this was a fulfilled prophecy, that Israel is not a future biblical mandate, which is another thing that drives me nuts, is the biblical side of it, because so many people have no idea. They're putting this worship on Israel like it's some God's chosen thing for the future, when all 12 tribes were there 2,000 years ago. And it's not a replacement theology, because the entire first beginning of the church was nothing but Jews. No, it was, they were replacing their old covenant for the new that was prophesied throughout their scriptures and moving forward. But, I'm looking at all this and thinking as I watched this and saw these different things that you were discovering, and I began to start really examining that, and I'm like, wow, it was like Candace was right. It was a front entry wound, and everybody's trying to figure out, where did it come from? Where did it come from? Who did it? Was it the speaker? Was it the guy out there in the front? And then the most easiest way for Israel to pull it off was to simply do what they did to Hezbollah. And that is to explode something to where you can't. Oh, I know what I was going to mention too, because I kept thinking in my mind there was something I was going to share and I forgot what it was. You remember how we look at this shirt lift up, the puff in the back, and you're going to show in a minute, I know, where the sleeve as well, that it's like the air comes out that sleeve and stuff. back in my early years, I was nearly killed with a 12 gauge shotgun, point blank range. And I just happened to drop in time to miss the blast itself. But still, when a shotgun goes off, any gun goes off for that matter, there is that gas that is releasing from the explosion of the gunpowder that pushes that projectile forward. And I couldn't see it naturally. And back in those days, it wasn't like everybody ran around with cameras and we didn't have phones and videos and everything. But I felt that concussion as that shock wave went through my hair. And as the bullet went right over the top of my head there. And I actually thought I was hit because of it. I actually thought that I was already hit and I was done for. But by grace of God, I wasn't hit there. And then also I was in a suicide bombing as well. That one, the blast of that knocked me off my feet. But that was the other thing that you were examining a lot of, is all that movement of everything around him. The impact has happened. He hasn't even gone like this yet. It's just the impact. You see all that blast, shock wave of the blast itself going around him, and yet his body hasn't had that instantaneous second to respond, other than the blast itself and the effect that it's having on him. And it also would seem to me, now I'm not a doctor, so I don't know how this works, but it would seem to me more realistic why then his head goes forward from that. And that could be from the paralysis and things that strikes his body as well from that impact to his neck.
Yeah. First, let's take a minute to appreciate that Steve is still with us. I mean, how many times have they tried to kill you, man? Oh my God. You had how many near, like, Jesus. I know Messiah tried to kill you. You had a suicide bomb thing. You almost taken out with a shotgun. Woo! My goodness. You definitely have an angel protecting you, my friend.
Well, thank you. So, but we lost my father-in-law though because of those three doctors. With Carrie Madej and then Jim Thorpe and Deborah Viglione. Carrie, though, seemed to be very much knowing what she was doing when she came to the house there. But, and this is the thing that I felt like with Charlie, we were warned to keep our mouth shut. We were coming out of Zionism. And I think that's the reason there's that connection between Charlie. Like, I can really relate to what he went through because, we were pro-Zionist. I mean, I went into the Knesset. We would interview parliament members and more specifically, I should say Yehuda Glick. I interviewed him. My wife was with me. We would sit there and we were so pro-Israel at the time and back years ago. And then my wife began to wake up first. And then she started asking me questions. She said, like, you speak this language. You should look at it in the Bible the way you know how to read it. And so then we both began to dig. And then she really got into realizing the Noahide laws and the dangers of those. And now that's exploding. But some of her research early on, and even now she's putting together her next two books her first two books on this. But what happened is we're speaking at a church, oddly enough, in Tennessee, and very close to where Candace lives. And the pastor is packed. The church was packed with people, and Yana was speaking, and the pastor comes up to me and he says, "Look, there's this strange man here, and he's trying to get near to you or your wife." He says, and I'm very concerned about it. Eventually, as I said, I think we mentioned this before, but eventually he gets up there and he tells me, he says to me and speaks to me in Hebrew. He made it clear, he knows the Hebrew language, and I think he didn't want them to know what he was saying. But he says to me, he says, you and your wife are going down the wrong path. And we want to help you get back on track before it's too late. And, so I'm like, I realized then it was shut your mouth, or they're going to do something about it. Well, it took them a couple of years before they finally were able to pull that off. And I still, that's just my own theory. I don't say it's a factual, the factual evidence is out there. Carrie was found by civil court, which, by the way, they have been trying their dadgumdest to keep it from ever going. The DA actually admitted in a letter that there is no doubt that this woman is guilty of a felony of aggravated manslaughter or something. That he already knew that she was guilty, but the judge himself in the civil suit that was going forward said that she was intentional, criminal, and reckless in what she did. But 21 degrees of peroxide injected is so lethal. I found out also in one document they were using peroxide IVs to kill Holocaust inmates, that was one of the methods that they actually used back then. I didn't know that at the time. But, you know, the 21 mils didn't make sense because, you know, your syringe that she used was a 20 milliliter syringe, but I'm sitting there watching because I didn't know it was lethal, and she's pulling it in the syringe and she goes to 21 milliliters. She said, you just go past the 20 just a little bit. Now you got 21 milliliters, you know, and she said, and that's what will work. That's what will kill the COVID virus. That was her point there. And then, you know, you have no idea that this is going to cause horrible damage to the human body. And of course, my father-in-law, with the treatment furthered on by Deborah Viglione and Jim Thorpe, which, by the way, Tucker Carlson interviewed Dr. Thorpe after I had him on. Wasn't long after that I had him on. But
isn't he the one of the, I know one of the doctors actually came to you afterwards and admitted their role in it, admitted that they had done wrong, that they killed him. Was that Jim Thorpe that did that?
No.
Or was that a different doctor?
No, none of them actually admitted that they were wrong. You know, now Carrie, though, you know, she actually had texted us the formula for the 21 mils of peroxide so that it could be continued. And her protocol was use it 5 times. Dr. Thorpe used that, but then he also added raw ozone gas to the veins. And supposedly this was a normal treatment. It's crazy to even imagine that people would do it. But I mean, of course, you're trusting doctors. You believe that, you know, we're at a time where everybody's panicking. They don't know what to do. And my father-in-law was very nervous about the mainstream system because of some very bad experience he had just over, you know, having a kidney infection at one point there. And when he went to the hospital there, and he didn't have no fevers, no nothing, you know, and just needed to be treated in Tennessee, they were wanting to lock him up and isolate him. Well, you know, English is broken for him. You know, he spoke like 4 languages, and that wasn't his first language by no means there. And he wanted to have his family with him. So that caused a fear in itself. But really, so we don't digress too far from this, the biggest thing that I saw, like in the 21 mils, I couldn't help but wonder, is that the 21st? Was that like a message, so to speak, to this family, the 21st degree Mason? And she would, Carrie Madej would even say to my wife, she said, you're so brave the way you are, and you stand and you come out against Israel and what they're doing, right? You know, because she had befriended our family. She would come and stay with us. And so we really sincerely trusted her. And then what happens, though, is that we take and we're at this one point there when she's there and she does this administration. It's normally, she would always stay with us. I had a room ready for her and stuff. And then she's like, no, I got to go. I can't stay. I got to go. And we're like, what the heck is going on? And, you know, and she said, don't worry, this will keep on working. Well, it kept on working all right. And then she also nebulized my father-in-law with a formula that we found out later was 85 times stronger than normal. And it destroyed his epithelium. And this is what really hit him so hard. And just, you know, just is so traumatic. And of course, what it did to my family, you know, especially the after effect, to find out this was done deliberate. This was done intentional. You know, and, you know, you can't, and of course, when I mentioned the 21st degree Mason, that is a Noahide Mason. And they're what is called in the Freemasonry, the executioner for those that violate the Noahide laws. It's just insane. And, you know, but again, like Charlie, we were warned. Charlie was warned. We know this. Candace Owens has brought this out over and over. He was fearing for his life. He said, they're going to try to kill me. And who's they? Who was he going against?
And that's what that meeting in the Hamptons was. That was their warning. That was their, you're going down the wrong path, get on track or else. And Charlie said no. He stood up to them and said, no, I'm declining your money. I'm done with the Israeli cause. And they killed him for it.
That's exactly right. And that's, I think with us, see, Charlie affected a much, much greater audience than we do, just like Candace does, you know, and that's why I knew, you know, I mean, I'm sitting there getting right from one of the biggest Mossad families in Israel being told that, you know, we'll take care of her. We can make it look like a suicide or whatever we need to do, you know, and then, you know, talking about, you know, her security team is compromised and, you know, and the man just, I mean, his hatred towards her was so great. And then he tells me, you know, because I'd known him for a long time, he says, what, and he uses some pretty foul languages when he does it, you know, but he's like, what the F did you do, Steve, to piss off the Knesset so bad? He said, they hate you there. And, you know, and he knows why, because of the way I stand for Christ. And I changed completely. And the reason they hated us so bad, just like with Charlie, see, Charlie, they weren't going to let that happen with Charlie. They weren't going to let it drag on. With us, they were able to start shadow banning us and things like that and slowing our growth down. But, you know, we affected so many Christians, and so many of them were pushing back now that even people like Amir Tsafarti, he would call us out by name. You can't listen to Stephen and Yana Benin. You can't listen to they're lying and they're this and they're that. But they couldn't defeat us theologically on what we were saying. And that was waking Christians up. And that's where the problem was for them. So for them, it was just kill them all. And I think that's exactly what they tried to do.
And that's one of the reasons why they're making such a big push in these churches now to push this propaganda on everybody. And they're trying to use religion as a weapon. They're weaponizing the Bible against Christians to
yes,
you know, to try to make everybody believe that you know, they're God's chosen people and everybody needs to support Israel. And that's completely wrong.
It is. And I'll say, you know, I'm not against Christian people, or excuse me, Jewish people. You know, if they want to believe what they want to believe, that's what freedom of religion is all about. You know, it shouldn't be that they have to believe the way we believe or anything like that. But the thing is, it's when they're trying to enact laws in our nation, demanding that we adhere to their ideology, and they're passing laws. And AIPAC, for example, is controlling every aspect of our government. You know, practically every politician is bought
Big
out.
time. Both sides, yeah.
Right.
Republican, Democrats. They're both. There's only like one or two out of the entire everybody in Congress, Senate that is not taking money from AIPAC. The rest of them are all corrupt. They're all taking money from AIPAC.
Yes, and then the other thing too that drives me crazy as well, Colin, is and I appreciate so much Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Carrie Prejean Bowler, all of them. But when I watch, I'm just, my wife will say the same thing. She says when she watched Tucker interview Mike Huckabee, she said, my heart was just broken. She said, because I realize this man's trying so hard, but he doesn't know how to defend and fight that type of fight against someone that is defending Israel unequivocally, and Israel can do no wrong, and Israel's, you know, and this is their land. He doesn't ever bring up the fact that what happened in 1948 war was, you know, basically they came in there and they threw all the people out, took their homes. They're still doing it to this day. East Jerusalem right now, they are totally driving all the Palestinians out of their homes, taking their homes, giving them to Jewish people. I mean, could you imagine if that happened to America? Could you imagine, Colin, if, you know, suddenly, I mean, and for Tucker, for example, or Candace, could you imagine, guys, if they came into your house right now and just said, oh, by the way, this is not your house. This belongs to the Jewish people. This is, God gave us this land. You know, I mean, think about it like that. God gave us this land. Well, see, God fulfilled that promise from the Nile to the Euphrates in two places. One, he did it during Solomon's, when he had the reign, and he controlled that entire region. But more importantly, he fulfilled it when the other 10, as they called them, lost tribes, came back on the day of Pentecost, because Peter said, "Be it known unto you, O house of Israel, that this same Christ whom you crucified is made both Lord and Christ." So 3,000 of them got baptized, filled with the Holy Spirit, and they came from 15 nations between the Nile and the Euphrates and a little bit beyond. And so now it was because, what was it? That it was all about the promised seed, and that was Christ. Going back to Genesis, and this is the one I really want to touch on here. They always like to quote, "Whoever blesses Israel, God will bless, and whoever curses Israel, God will curse." And it doesn't even say that. It simply says one simple statement, Colin. God says to Abram, he's not even Abraham yet, "Whoever blesses you," in a singular, no plural, not you and your kids, just you, I'll bless. "Whoever curses you, I will curse. And in you, all the nations," all the goyim, it actually uses the word goyim, the favorite word of the Jews, to call everybody a bunch of dogs, which it doesn't mean dog, it just means nations. "All the goyim of the earth will be blessed." And the only way that the other nations got blessed was when Christ came and the covenant opened up to the entire world. All right. Now, when you get to Isaac, the cursing and blessing skips him completely. Oh, why did he get left out? You get to Jacob, he adds it again. Why? Because Laban was going to curse him. Laban was going to curse him, so Laban ended up reaping what he sowed, so to speak. It's not a major thing that happened to him, but he went against him. But why was God doing this blessing and curse? Because the woman's seed in Genesis came down, and Abraham's bloodline was going to produce a woman called Mary one day that would believe God more than any other person ever did and bring forth that Messiah. That's why that cursing and blessing was there. But then Moses says, and I'll stop at this so I don't turn this into a sermon. Moses goes like this. He says to Israel one day, "I set before you life and death, not just to you, but for those that will come later." That's interesting. He said, "I set before you a blessing and a curse." Oh, wow. It's not just that God, whoever blesses Abram. Now God is telling Israel, "I'm going to give you an option. You can either be blessed or you can be cursed." Whoa. Now here's a different story. That got fulfilled when Jesus Christ stood there that day before Pilate, and Barabbas was standing there as well. The blessing and the curse, life and death. Barabbas was taken not only insurrection, but murder. Actually, a murder of a woman. And they chose death instead. Now, not all of them. So when they use this stupid idea of replacement theology, oh, there's just churches trying to replace the Jews. No, the entire church was nothing but Jews. It wasn't replacement theology. God changed the covenant. Jesus said not one jot or tittle would pass from the law till all be fulfilled. What does that mean? In other words, everything those prophets said about him has to be fulfilled. He fulfilled it. Now it's passed. Now it's a new covenant. And these are some of the fundamental things that people like Tucker and Candace really need to know to be able to defend. Does Israel have a right today to be in that land? Well, they have a right to live and be in a land, period. But this whole idea when Mike Huckabee tries to define Zionism by saying it just means that they have a right to a state. Okay, they're there. They've already done the damage they've done. But the Palestinians have a right to a state as well. They have a right because they're the indigenous people. But Mike Huckabee kept making it look like, well, if you can conquer the land and kill all the inhabitants, then that becomes your land.
No, you do not have a right to any specific geographical region. You have a right to live, and that is it. Simple as that.
Right.
You know, you have a...
Exactly. So, you know, now granted, people have been born there, but really what needs to happen, this whole bloodshedding thing and them controlling and trying to demand. And then Mike Huckabee makes it look like, oh, we got freedom of religion here. No, you don't, Mike Huckabee. I lived in Israel. I'm a believer to begin with, and I know good and well what Israel will do to you. If anybody complains, and if you start preaching on the street, they're not going to do a whole lot of fuss about it, especially if it's down like in Tel Aviv, where it's not around so much of the religious group there. But as soon as somebody complains, you will be stopped. If you don't want to stop, they will take you to the airport and put you on a plane and send you back to your country. I've seen it. I know it. That's the way it works. It is not freedom of religion.
Look what they did to Tucker trying to enter the country. They detained him and put him in separate rooms and, you know, questioning him. And it was they try to play it off like, oh, he's lying. They showed that one clip of him getting a selfie with a guy, but they're not showing the whole thing. They're only showing the very end of it, where this is afterwards, after they give him his passport back, after they reunite them together and are releasing them. That's what they show. They don't show the scary part where they take their passports, separate them, put them in interrogation rooms, and question the hell out of them. They don't show that part. Where's the rest of the video?
Exactly, right? And by the way, Tucker said, he said they chose that to sit there and put it on their social media. He said, but that was the driver. He said that brought us from the plane to the airport. And he said he was so kind.
Okay, I didn't see that, but yeah, there you go.
He said he was so kind to me, and the other thing, this is something that really made me think about the issue with Tucker there as well, is Tucker, when he's going in, trying to get this whole thing, there's a couple of things that he mentions that I don't know if people catch on to what he's talking about. He says, you have to do, if you're going to do an interview, you have to come to an agreement on the terms of the interview. Well, that means Mike Huckabee was telling him what you're going to be allowed to ask me and what you're not going to be allowed to ask me. That kind of tied Tucker's hands, because I see he can never really take up for the Palestinians and what they're going through. And of course, the big thing always comes to October the 7th and what Hamas did. And do you like what Hamas did? Of course, I don't like what Hamas did, but I will tell you straight up, Tucker, what you should say in a case like this here is say, no, I don't agree with what Hamas did on October the 7th, but who I hold responsible for is the Israeli government for allowing a 6 to 8 hour stand down, which caused the innocent lives of Israelis to be lost. And then my question would be, is why did you stand down? I live there. I went through a suicide bombing there. I know how fast the Israeli government can respond. Not to mention, I could drive from all the way in the Golan Heights, all the way down to the Gulf of Aqaba at the very end of the country there in Eilat. I could do that in about 4 hours. All right, 4 to 4.5 hours tops driving. And you mean to tell me for 6 hours and you monitor that fence there and they're streaming it live to the world, what's going on social media, we're being killed and everything, and nobody shows up for six hours, we know max, and nobody does anything? That's a crock. That means you wanted your people to die. You wanted another USS Liberty, but you do it with your own people. I've got a book, Colin, in Tennessee called Holocaust Victims Accused. And one of the things that Moshe Shinfeld did, he was a Jewish rabbi during the Holocaust. He brought it before the courts. Why did you allow 800,000 Jews to go to their death from I think it was from Hungary to Auschwitz? And they said, well, we needed blood on the table in order to justify the state of Israel in the future. Oh, so because they could have rescued them, but what they do, they only rescued the little group that they wanted. Paid the same price, but for the same price, they could have got the whole lot of them. Israel is known for false flags or killing their own to justify a means for another end. And I believe that's why they did Gaza that way.
And with October 7th, there's been an IDF soldier that's also come forward. He's come forward on video and admitted that they were stand down orders that day.
He played the actual recording from the actual commander himself saying, do not go near the fence of Gaza whatsoever for the next couple of hours. Well, that couple of hours turned into 6. And see, they're afraid, though, because Israel's a military state. It really is. You don't, and of course, naturally, even though the whole country, like Charlie Kirk said in that one interview that he was doing, he says, was there a stand down order? He said, was there? He said, do you not know that the country was at a point that they were protesting and that, that more than 50% of the government wanted to change because of Netanyahu's judicial reforms that he was doing, trying to turn the country into a theocracy? They had to do something to stop this growing movement in Israel before they lost control, because they want a theocracy, because they're going to say the light to the nations comes from Israel. And that's another thing. Listen, people that are Christians that might be listening to this, let me ask you the question. How is Israel, the only way they're a light to the nation is because they light up the world with bombs. That's the light of the nations? I mean, that's totally opposite of everything Jesus Christ ever taught. Everything I write on Substack, Colin, under Stephen Benoon, Substack, And I try to make everything as much as I can free. I know it converts to paid on a lot of it there, but I'm writing in depth so people know these prophecies that they thought was for Israel today is nothing but a Schofield lie. The early church never taught this. And we're just all duped into the lies. So, and this is why Charlie, that's why they went after Charlie. Even though Charlie was still a very strong supporter of Israel, give Charlie another year or two, where would he have been then? He was like JFK. He was another problem for Israel, and they weren't going to allow that to happen. And so they made a public example of him like they did Kennedy.
Exactly. And he was so big, he affected so many people that followed him and watched him, and even and especially they're Israel is particularly losing the young people. They're using, and it's a lot easier to shape young minds than old minds. So they focusing on the young people, and Charlie was going right there to the colleges, talking to these people in person, and him turning on Israel they could not have that. They're already losing the young people, and then if Charlie turned on them and they really lose the young demographic, they'd be in trouble. And that's why honestly, they screwed up, because by doing that, they've only, they sent the message, but they sent the wrong message. They wanted to scare everybody into shutting up, but what they did was they shocked us all into action, is what they did. They woke so many people up by doing that.
Yes. And now the people are searching, Colin, and they're searching to get the answers for themselves finally. And
which is why they have to shadow ban everything, why they have to, like Chat GPT. I just put out a video today where you can't even search anything. It's automatically, you try to look anything up, it's, oh, yep, sorry, anti-Semitic, can't help you.
Isn't that crazy? And how did they do it? I mean, Netanyahu said, look, we got to use new battles of warfare. And he tells them TikTok and Twitter and YouTube, and we got to have a talk with Elon Musk. So how much longer will we get away with what we're saying? When you control everything that well, it's like Putin said one time. He said, whoever controls AI will control the world. And that's exactly what they've learned to do. They buy it up. They create a Palantir. My wife did an article on her Substack under Yana Satova, and she put in there where Palantir was awarded a Torah for helping to defend the laws and to track down those violators. I don't know if it says the 7 Noahide laws, but that's basically what they're doing. They use their information to track down people that were part of Hamas. And by the way, when I say Hamas, I don't support Hamas at all. I'll make that very clear. But Hamas was created by Benjamin Netanyahu and his leadership in order to keep the PLO from getting a two-state solution. Shouldn't even have to have a two-state solution. These people were there before they came. In fact, recently I did a broadcast about Moshe Sharit's son. I think his name is Yaakov Sharit. He's 99 years old. He's still alive. At 92 years old, he came out and he exposed what they did in the Negev Desert during the 48 war that he was a part of. And he actually has said in multiple interviews, including Israeli news media, he said this. He said, we have become a terrorist state. He said, all we do is we murder and we kill. And he said, that's what they made us do when I was young. And he said, I believe my father he said, I can't speak for him. He said, but I knew my father just went along with it. But I knew that he didn't feel that it was right. And he said, and we took their homes. We stole this land from these people. And he said, if I could leave this nation today and go to America like some of my kids have done, I would do it. He said, I am so ashamed of what we have done in this country. And these are people that are considered heroes of the nation of Israel. But he went into great depth of the crimes that they did against the Palestinian people of that time frame. So this is why I say people need to get educated. If you're looking at things from a biblical aspect, you need to get educated to know what truly is the truth about this, because it's totally wrong. I think Carrie Prejean Bowler, when she was on the Religious Affairs Committee, when she stood there and she was brave enough to stand against all this Jewish delegation that was there, and she says, am I an anti-Semite because I don't believe in Zionism? And the guy basically says, yeah, that's what you are. And then she makes, she ends up saying that, she said, there is no biblical evidence for the modern state of Israel. So, that was a very powerful thing that she did. Now, she does promote Catholicism, and, I know Candace does as well. I'm not for Catholicism, but I am for freedom of religion. I don't care if you're Catholic, if you're Protestant or whatever. Every group has got some kind of something skewed, and maybe even with myself. I don't say I have all the right answers either, but at least the thing is we need to join together. And because Israel is very well joined together, at least the groups that are pushing this, and it's mainly the Chabad organization that pushes this, because there's a lot of Jewish people totally against Zionism. A lot of rabbis and Orthodox.
Especially the Orthodox Jews. Yeah, I mean, I know a bunch of them in New York that I speak with regularly.
Yes, they're totally against it, and I can appreciate that stance there, because right now what we're seeing is they want to do away with all the systems, and they want to make Israel the head, bring a new world order, and put all the Gentiles under these Noahide laws. So, and
Christians are Gentiles, by the way, just so everybody's aware. The Christians, they consider Christians Gentiles.
Yeah. And they want to bring
enslave
the nation down too. They want to destroy America.
Exactly. They want to destroy America, which brings me to this. I posted this video. You should actually go check out. Ryan Matta did a 15-minute video on this. If you look under my post, I have his full video. But there's just a section here from Benjamin Netanyahu that I want you guys to see. I want to play real quick. I mean, it just shows you how evil this man is, and what they think of America. They're not our ally at all. Just watch this.
This is word for word, verbatim, from the Jerusalem Post by Benjamin Netanyahu in 1990. If we get caught, they will just replace us with a person from the same cloth. So it doesn't matter what you do. America is a golden calf, and we will suck it dry, chop it up, and sell it off piece by piece until there is nothing left but the world's biggest welfare state that we create and control. Why? Because it's God's will. And America is big enough to take the hit, so we can do it again and again and again. This is what we do to the countries that we hate. We destroy them very slowly, but we make them suffer for refusing to be our slaves.
So what Israel is fighting here is not merely a 7-front war, but an 8-front war. For the Jews against Rome. Rome and Jerusalem clashed over values, with a great tragedy for the Jewish people. But the new Rome, the United States, Jews against Rome.
The weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well.
But we've been programmed with decades and decades, all the way back to the 1950s or earlier. There is a small group of individuals that are hell-bent on destroying America.
So there you go, guys.
That is amazing right there, Colin. It is really, really amazing what you just showed there. I want to quickly, because of what he said there, I know my wife actually brought that up not long ago, Colin. And maybe what would be good to do.
And they try to say that's a fake quote. That's a fake quote. It's not a fake quote. It was listed in one of Israel's biggest newspapers or whatever, the Jerusalem Post. That's one of Israel's biggest media outlets. This is a real quote that he really said back in the 90s. So don't let them try to fool you and say it's fake. It's 100% real. And like I said, don't trust anything AI tells you nowadays, because they've hijacked everything and they are rewriting history to fit their narrative. I mean, we even saw it where I think we might have played it on the last time you and me together, where Huckabee was on the stream saying, "Oh, when it comes to Gaza, what happened in Gaza, we have to make sure that we portray Israel as the victims. We have to correct it and make sure that history reflects that Israel's the real victims, not Gaza."
Exactly. I put up there her Substack, and the reason I did that, Colin, is because some of the things that Yana does here in exposing these things in the Noahide laws there is, and including on mine as well, and on hers too. She does a lot of work going into as far back as for the last 7 years. Yana has been exposing the Noahide laws. So I've actually posted some of her old videos, both here on her page as well as on, I think too, on Rumble, and Israeli News Live Rumble. You can find some of this information, but she's constantly writing about things here. And this one here, "In the Den of Wolves, Serpents," that's a clip of where we're talking about Noahide laws, and I think that's about 7 years ago, maybe more recent. Oh, no, I take it back. I think that is recent there, but there is so much information, what Jewish law really says about Islam, 3-minute read. A lot of her reads are not very lengthy, but if you really want to get educated on Noahide laws, that's the place to go to see what's coming from genocide to development deal, and America, the Israel's incubator. This is where she was dealing with Jack Hibbs and Emil Sefarti there. But the wealth of knowledge is just really amazing in here. The Catholic document that confirmed Talmudic Noahide law for humanity, that's under the Nostra Aetate that she writes about that. And she always sources things. So you want to get educated on it. I just encourage you to check out what she does there, because it is important information. So
I second that. Both her and Steve both do an amazing work at exposing everything and talking about the truth, what the Bible actually says, exposing. I mean, they do especially with the Noahide laws. Like, a lot of people don't realize Israel's Noahide laws are basically the same thing as the Muslim Sharia law, except that we're only they want us to be concerned about the Sharia law, but at the same time, the Jews are trying to institute the Noahide laws here in America as well, and nobody seems to care about that because they don't know about it.
Exactly, and the thing is, Colin, what is it? The Jewish people never carry out the beheadings themselves. They always, and that's one of the Noahide laws. The Gentiles are to set up the courts of justice. They're to carry out the executions. This is why Sharia law is important for them, is for that. And this is one, let me just share this one as well, Colin. Let me find the right buttons here. This is one where Yana does a breakdown. It's on my Substack. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything to be able to see it. And
but they want us to have the Noahide courts here in America. That's how they want to persecute and get rid of all of us Christians and turn us into their slaves. Exactly.
So let's take and play a little short clip of this here. This is Yana 7 years ago, or no, maybe I think this was about 5 years ago, where she is talking about just giving you she calls this a refresher course on Noahide laws, hour and 42 minutes long. But let me just play a little short spot right here.
For you. Okay? Do you understand me? Okay, now I'm going right now, and I'm coming back to this. I'm going to the Sefirot tree. This is Kabbalah tree. Now, this is a Kabbalah tree that is real. That's in their Kabbalah literature with a snake through it. You have to understand this snake represents their Messiah, holy serpent. Okay? All right, let's go back. These are the 10 Sefirot of the Kabbalah. Do you see the Bina, the Da'at, and Chokhmah, understanding, knowledge, and wisdom? Do you see those? Okay, those represent
you can't actually see what she's saying there because it's a small recording there, but it's just so that people could go and look at these things and to be able to get some education on it. I think even on YouTube, we have a playlist on the Noahide laws. But Rumble, of course, Israeli News Live. I mean, I kind of hate even having this name Israeli News Live because of all the evil they've brought upon the world here now. But we'll wade through it as much as we can. So anyway, that's I'm about. Unless you got some other direction you want to go, Colin. My brain is.
No, we kind of got off track there.
Yeah, we did. So because really the main point is trying to find out what actually killed Charlie. I mean, I think the who is very obvious, and I know that they don't want to point the finger to Israel. They don't want to say Israel's involvement, but Israel no doubt used.
They did it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were responsible 100%. And Trump is. I don't know if Trump had involvement beforehand, but Trump 100%. The Trump administration is covering up without a doubt.
Yes, 100%. So it's so sad to see this here. Go ahead. I know like this.
Yeah. So, another thing, this is another reason why that you can prove that there was no way that Charlie was struck with a bullet. He was not killed with 30-06 to the neck. There's just no way. And one of the reasons is there was definitely energy, something energetic going on underneath of that shirt. And it happened before the wound cavity even happened. But one of the ways you could see it is with this video right here, where you can see actually the puff of air come out of his sleeve, out of Charlie's sleeve. And this is, like I said, this is before, slightly just, milliseconds before the actual wound happens. So, I mean, you can definitely see that there.
And so much of this, when we looked at this, is, I would think, well, maybe it's just his muscle reflecting and stuff. But once you really begin to look at everything from the initial impact, that the gases from an explosion, the concussion that it causes is what's so obvious to this, Colin. And, no matter where, and I think this is why they can get away with trying to put this on Tyler Robinson as their patsy, because they know you can't really find anything else. They designed it to where it's a front entrance wound. They designed it to where, no doubt, the person that they had on the roof that day was a complete setup. They had to have a witness. If you're gonna stage something, just like in JFK, you had to have somebody in that area and then plant the device to make it look a certain way. And
well, here's the thing, right? And I think John Bray is right on with this. I do not think that they intended to hit Charlie in the neck. What happened, I do not think that was the intended target. I think that they meant to hit, the explosion to hit him in the chest, and they wanted to mimic a 30-06 hitting him in the chest. That is what their intended goal was. And one of the things, as John Bray points out, and I think he's in the Trigger Smart video, if you go watch when he was on Trigger Smart, but one of the things he points out is, and I remember this too early on, there were a lot of the witnesses early on during the investigation that said that they saw a bullet hit Charlie in the chest, that he was hit in the chest. And clearly on video, we don't see that. There is nothing in the chest. And now that they've gone out and wiped all that footage, so now you can't find those interviews with the people that said they hit him in the chest. The only thing you see are the people that said he was hit in the neck. So they clearly, I think that it went awry. They meant to hit him. They had, their plan was for it to hit him in the chest, and they were going to claim it was a 30-06. But when it hit him in the neck, that screwed everything up. That derailed their entire plan, and then they had to change everything on the fly. And that's why we're getting a bunch of shit that doesn't match, nothing adding up. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what happened.
And that would make more sense to where, they could pull something like that off and get away with it, because especially with it being near his waistline there to start with. And yeah, that would make sense, because too, they're trying to use a amateur shooter from 140 yards away, and they don't want to make it look like he's so accurate. They would make it look more radical, if you were, Colin, to make it look like this guy was really just there to he had a vendetta. They had already profiled him to begin with, followed him on social media, things like that. And just like you had discovered as well, you got Tyler, he's not even at the location. He's somewhere later discovered in video footage there. He's at, what was it, an ice cream place or some kind of fast food place, in a video cam footage there. So they had to set somebody up that fit.
Yeah, the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, they had to set him up to fit his profile. And no telling where that person is today, but to make it look that way. But then, of course, the obvious thing, like some of these former Navy SEALs that had brought up, they said, you couldn't pack what they claimed he had, this 30-06, down his leg, jump off that building, and then his legs bend with no problem to catch the recoil, that wouldn't have happened with that big rifle sticking in there. Even if he took it apart on the roof, it would, still.
Yeah, not at all.
None of that.
Him walking down the street, it's not there. Him going on the stairs, it's not there. Like you said, on the stairs, you could see his legs bending as he's going up the stairs in that stairwell. When he jumps off the roof, as you said, when he jumps down, the legs bend. They would not do that if there was a gun in the pants. And then they try to say, well, he was holding the gun in the tail. No, because you could see it flopping around. Guns don't flop around.
Yes. And I even think when we go back to this infrared laser idea, again, you've got multiple, just like with the drones, you had drones flying around everywhere. They wanted to be able to say, the whole thing is, even with Kennedy, they created so many different scenarios. And by the way, even when the media was putting out there and all the stories years later, you've got this theory, that theory, they do this intentionally so that you can never get to the truth. That's why they create these things. This young man sitting there almost perfectly in line with the time, raises up, got this little spotter laser. You don't see it from what he's holding, but then it comes off of Frank's phone there. Now I don't think they were intending it to go off of the phone, but I'm sure they figured that, whatever part that plays into this, or, I don't know the answers to all of that, but it seems that a lot of decoys were put out there.
They definitely wanted to muddy the waters. They did all of that to muddy the waters for sure. I mean, one of the theories, I don't necessarily agree with this theory, but Barron has also a theory that he was electrocuted as well. And one of the reasons he says that is there are burn marks on his hands and on his chest that he sees that he thinks could be that. I mean, so there's just a multitude of things that they did all at the same time to intentionally muddy the waters, to make it difficult for people to understand what actually happened.
Yeah. The only thing I could say is I hope that this Tyler Robinson is not convicted for something the guy never did. That would be a tragedy for that young man. I mean, it's already a tragedy. He's spending his days and weeks and months now in a prison in an environment to where he never did this. And
yeah, I agree.
I don't believe any evidence whatsoever supports that.
I mean, he was involved there's enough evidence for me to know he was involved, but he certainly was not the shooter, and he was not even at UVU at the time that it happened. So,
Yeah. But taking the fall for sure. I'll tell you what.
yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I think that goes back to the the skull to brain technology, and the mind control that they've done on him, the MK Ultra level stuff, because he was definitely part of the program, and so was his little lover boy. What the hell's his name? His
that one I don't. I know
lover,
you're
I
talking
forget his
about.
name,
But
but
yeah,
yeah.
yes, yeah. Skull to brain technology definitely, no doubt, played a role in their actions and what happened to them, and and then they can do it on mass level as well. So, could they have affected even people that are in the audience? Could that have been a thought that was placed in their minds? Oh, I saw him.
Lance Twig.
Right? So many people were saying, no, I saw him shot right in the chest and everything yet, but all the blood is coming from his neck and not from his chest. How do you get that? But you never know. It's, could they have used that as well? That's a totally different subject to go down altogether.
Oh, big time. Absolutely.
Masters of deception. And that's that's their motto, right? Their motto is, we will rule the world. I forget how it goes. Something by deception. So I think that's Mossad ideology. Who knows? I forget now. There's so many of those things out there. Oh, yeah. Colin, well, I really appreciate you doing this today and getting this out here. And we actually were able to run it live on Israeli News Live as well.
Excellent.
And don't hold it against me if you're watching this. We have actually on my Twitter account, I did change the name. That is just bothered. I'll tell you what really made me do it recently, though. I saw the trailer clip to the movie about the voice of I forget the little girl's first name there, Hin Rajab, I think is how you say her name, where they did a documentary movie about this girl, and they used her real voice in the footage there when it was early on in the war, and she calls from a cell phone inside of a car that the Israelis were attacking, and she tells them she's afraid. And she said she's only like 5 years old, and she says, you hear her voice come on there in Arabic, and she says, I'm scared. And they said, what's going on? And she says, they're killing my family. I'm in the car. They're shooting at my car. And they try to get to her. They're trying to get the paramedics to get the Israelis to clear a safe corridor for the paramedics to get to her. They ended up shooting that car 355 times. And the little girl did die. And also they killed the paramedics that tried to save her life.
Oh, my. That's so sad. That's just so sad.
And like they say in the story, which I hear this over and over and over, that's just one of many such cases like that, where they just obliterate little children. And, in the Israeli soldiers, I did a coverage on that recently. Their suicide rate is so alarming right now. And it's because they can't deal with it. They're being forced to do things by the Israeli government that when it comes to reality, they can't deal with the PTSD. And I played 2 clips of 2 soldiers before the Knesset, both of them talking about they wet their bed at night, waking up. And the one says he wakes up, he said, and I keep seeing this boy in my dream, and he keeps coming to me, and he says, why did you kill me? What did I do? They've done this to their own people. They've brainwashed them so bad. And, and of course, I understand, believe me, I've been on both sides of this. I understand why Christians would think, but what about what they've done to the Jews with the suicide bombings and things like that? Well, I was in one. I know what that feels like. But just like Miko Peled, his sister's daughter was killed by a suicide bomber. She's a professor at the Hebrew University. He says, my sister does not blame. She doesn't blame the the Palestinian that did it. She blames the Israeli government. And and we actually interviewed him a long time ago, and he said to us on the interview, he says, because my wife asked him why, and I'm just trying to remember bits and pieces of this. I know I won't quote it exactly right. He says, because we begin to realize, had we not treated the Palestinians the way we did, taking their homes, terrorizing them, going in the middle of the night. And he said, I know, because I was a soldier for 2 years. I did this. He said, I was trained. You go in there. We want them to fear us so greatly. We would go into their homes, take them in the middle of the night, and terrorize them the entire night so that they have this fear of us.
I've actually seen where videos on like if you really want to see what's happening in Gaza, just go to Telegram. There are a ton of channels on Telegram where the people that are there on the ground, they post these videos of the horrible stuff that Israel is doing to the people of Gaza. I mean, I've seen videos where they go to feed them, where the Israelis are there, they were going to feed them, and they just plow them all down and shoot them as they're coming in for food. I've seen other videos where they're trying to. There was one video I saw where there was this family trying to load up their grandmother who was in a wheelchair van, and the Israelis came through with their big armored vehicle and just intentionally rammed the side of this wheelchair van with the grandmother or the elderly woman in it. I mean, it's just disgusting. I mean, it's so sad.
We had an American soldier bring that up, and I'm sure you remember this as well, Colin, who came back. He left Israel. He was serving in Gaza as a contractor. He'd been in several wars. He was a decorated veteran of the U.S. military, serving in Iraq. And he said, I didn't sign up for this. And he tells them, he said, look, he shows pictures of where he was giving a bottle of water and this little bit of food that he had with him, this little Palestinian boy, and the little Palestinian boy kisses him. And he said, minutes later, I watched the Israelis killing. And he said, they just shoot indiscriminately, randomly. And he actually got arrested in Washington, D.C., protesting what we were doing over there. And, but this goes on and on and on. One journalist that I know, his name is Mutasim, he's still alive. He just posted an article, and I wrote him the other day, and he wrote me back. I'm going to try to get him on for the third time. He might be somebody we could get on here with you, Colin, as well. Mutasim, a journalist there, he had 3 sons, and he just wrote, he says, now my 3rd son is dead. He said, they've killed all of my sons. And, but one of the things I asked him about in the last interview, I said, Israelis are saying that it's Hamas that are shooting the people that are coming for food aid. And he says, let me make a correction. He said, it is Israelis that do it. He said, but not just Israelis. He said, the Israelis took prisoners out of their prison that were the worst of the worst prisoners that they had. He said, these were really prisoners, people that murdered their own people here in, whether it be in Gaza or in the West Bank. They were known to be murderers. And he said, they armed them and they brought them in to fight against Hamas. He said, but they also have demanded that they shoot at the people coming for food. He said, this is why people think it's Hamas. He said, but it wasn't Hamas. It's these ones that the Israelis brought in here to make it look like it's us shooting our own people to get a control of the food. And he said, that's what's really happening here. And another girl, Farah, her name is Farah, I think it's Farah from Gaza. I've been in contact with her quite a bit as well. And I actually got her to finally start sharing the story about her family in Gaza. A young girl that was in the university at the time before the war. And because she normally just pleads for help, but when she began to share her story and people really see, oh, I'm really in Gaza, this is not a joke, this is what's really happening, then she started getting views in the millions on her Twitter page there. So it's really a horrible thing. And Israel controls every bit of the food and aid that goes in there. And then on top of that, then you've got Israeli settlers that go in there and they try to block it, or they destroy all the food that's going in, and the Palestinians never get it. So it is a struggle daily. And now it's in the West Bank, all this craziness is happening.
Big time.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I guess that's all we got for today, unless you got anything else.
I'm good to go. I'm grateful that you took the time to do this. I've really been wanting to go with you on this issue about Charlie Kirk's assassination and looking at a possible another. I know that we've put out things that we really felt very convincing about in the time past there, and I don't want to discount anything that we have done, because we've done it really, really sincerely, trying to get to the bottom of this and get to the truth of this matter. The federal government, they know what it really is. They know it's not a bullet that hit this boy and went into him like that. But then again,
absolutely.
CIA is very good at covering up every branch of the government there is and making sure you'll never know the truth. I know that all too well. So thank you, Colin, for having me on.
Yeah, big time. Real quick, let people asking for update on my dad. What's going on? The latest thing with him is he has able to get his he had a feeding tube in his nose. And the good news is we were able to get the feeding tube out of his nose now. But so the feeding tube's out of his nose, and now he has a stomach. They put a G tube feeding tube in his stomach now. So at least he won't be, because he was having a lot of pain with that in his nose. And the bad news is he now has aspiration pneumonia because his throat muscles forgot how to swallow. So he can't, like, anytime he tries to drink anything, it goes right down to his lungs, goes down the wrong pipe or whatever, which is what caused the aspiration pneumonia. So we're dealing with that. He hasn't been cooperative, so he's had to be restrained down to the bed because he's tried to rip out his nose feeding tube a couple times. So now that that's out of his nose, hopefully today they plan on trying to take him out of the restraints again. So I'll be going up there when I get done, the live stream, but going up to the hospital today. And his unfortunately, his spirits are not really up. He's, like I said, the video I tried to show you yesterday without audio. I have the audio now. I could show you guys real quick if you want to see it. But it's sad. He's basically, he's to the point now where he is, and I don't think he doesn't believe this. Like, I don't think it's really, I just think he's not in his right mind. But he's begging me to help him die. It's always like, and that's one of the reasons why I hate going up to see him, because it's just so sad. Anytime I go up there, he constantly is like, that's all he said. He just keeps repeating himself. Well, first it was, help me get out of here. Help me get out of here. He wanted to leave the hospital. And I get that, because like what you said earlier about you can't trust hospitals, I agree with that. I've had the hospital he's at. I've had bad experiences with that hospital. He's had bad experiences with that hospital. It's the same hospital that killed my grandmother. And actually it was aspiration pneumonia is how they killed her, because they stopped feeding her. They didn't put a feeding tube in her. They just stopped feeding her and didn't give her any food, no water, no anything, and just let her wither away and die. So I do not like this hospital at all. So, I get that, but now he's to the point where he's, begging to, instead of to leave the hospital, he's begging to help him die. So, and it's sad because he can recover. He had a stroke, but he can recover. It's not like, if he is cooperative, all he's got to do is do the speech therapy, do the physical therapy, and he will get strong again. His muscles start, like he can make a full recovery, but he just has to be in the right mindset. And the hardest part is trying to get him in that right mindset. Yeah. So that's it. Oh yeah. So if you guys, I'll play the video for you real quick. Just. No, nobody's gonna help you die. You're gonna make it. No. You stop talking that way. You're gonna get strong. You're gonna get better, and you're gonna get out of here. I promise you.
Yeah, that's definitely got to be a hard thing, Colin, to go through, and we certainly be praying for your dad, for you as well. It's not easy to see your dad in that kind of condition there, and as I shared with you as well, it is something that eventually that will come back. That feeling will come back to the throat there, but it does take time. So we wish you all the best, and certainly be praying for your father. That he will get better. So, and just asking the people that listen to do the same. You're on mute again, Colin.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for the prayers. We definitely need it. Everybody please pray. And as far as, I agree with you. Like if we, like the biggest fight that we have is trying to get him in that mindset of, that he's going to make it, that he, we got to get him out of that depression and out of that, the mindset he's in. He needs to be a fighter. If he could be if he can fight, he, like you said, he can he can definitely make it. His throat muscles will start working again. So we just gotta keep trying to stay positive and get him to think positively.
Yes, absolutely. What your mind believes is so important, and so yeah, we certainly pray that he recovers and you still have him for many more years yet to come. So anyway.
Me too. Anyway, so that's all we got for you guys today. Oh, it's his right side, by the way, for the people asking. It's his right side. He has he can lift up. He can wiggle both sides of his toes. He can lift up his left arm a little bit, and he can barely lift. He can't really do anything. He can move his fingers on his right, but he doesn't have any strength to lift up his right arm or anything. And he definitely can't lift up his right leg. But with physical therapy, that will, that'll get better. If he stops fighting it, it'll get better. Yeah.
So, well,
thank you,
again,
Steve.
Colin. Thank you guys.
And everybody, everybody follow Steve. Make sure you go follow him on X. You can find him. Let me pull up his channel for you guys real quick so you know where to find him. Give me 1 second here. There it is. Okay. Yep. At Stephen Danoon right here. You can follow him on X right here. And you can follow him on YouTube as well at Stephen Ben Danoon on YouTube. Or Israeli News Live. Honestly, all you got to do is just, in the search, type in Israeli News Live and he'll come up. But definitely go follow him. He does great work. Definitely go check out their Substacks. Giannis, his wife Giannis Substack. And it's always a pleasure doing live streams with him. And we're going to get to the bottom of this one way or the other, man. We're going to keep at it, and as more evidence comes out, we'll keep doing these, and we'll keep evolving our theory as we go.
Well, definitely have to get back together again soon, brother. I appreciate it. Appreciate you having us on. God bless all of you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So that's our live stream for today. Thank you all. I appreciate you all. And see you on the next one. Later, Gators.